Welcome to ChiroSecure's weekly show, Chiropractic, Connecting People and Communities, with this week's host, Dr. Charmaine Herman. As Dr. Herman says, and I quote, as an associate professor at Life University and a practicing chiropractor doing upper cervical work, I will be sharing my experiences as a cultural competence trainer with the chiropractic community. And now, here's Dr. Herman.
Thank you, Dr. Stu. Hello, everyone. This is Dr. Charmaine Herman at Agave Upper Cervical Health Center in Alpharetta, Georgia. I'm excited about our first session today of cultural competence for the chiropractor CC101. So let's go ahead and get started and talk about a little bit about cultural competence, not initially, but we're going to actually start moving into that topic in later episodes. But initially, I want to talk about our goals for today. So our goals for today are, let's move on to the next slide. All right, so our goals for today is going to be the introduction. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about who I am. I'm also going to talk to you today about a little bit background behind cultural competence as far as where I'm concerned. And then I'm going to move into reviewing what the statistics say about our profession and why cultural competence is a great skill set for a doctor of chiropractic. So let's move to the next slide. Again, my name is Dr. Charmaine Herman. I am originally from St. Andrews, Jamaica. That's where I was born. My family immigrated to the United States in 1969. I actually became a naturalized citizen of the United States in 1993. I went to various schools in New York, and my education goes into Tuskegee University in Alabama. And then I graduated from the University of South Carolina with degrees in biology, history, a master's in history, and certification in women's studies. From there, I started working for the Department of Health in South Carolina, and I worked there for 10 years as a laboratory certification officer, as well as a cultural competence trainer. In 2005, I attended Sherman College of Straight Chiropractic at the time and graduated in 2009 with my Doctor of Chiropractic. Today, I'm a college professor at Life University. I teach in the College of Chiropractic, as well as have a practice here in Alpharetta, Georgia, that I opened in 2013 with my husband. So to the next slide. I have various roles at Life University that come in contact with the need for cultural competence and diversity issues. Again, I said I'm associate professor in the College of Chiropractic in the Division of Clinical Sciences. I'm also secretary for the Diversity Committee. I work as chiropractic liaison to the Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. I'm also the developer of the Cultural Competence Training module that the Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion uses on campus, and I'm also a trainer for that work. In addition to that, I am the co-advisor for the Student American Black Chiropractic Association, our Life University chapter on campus, and I'm a member of the Black Affairs Council at Life University. So let's move on again to the next slide where I can get more into where cultural competence became part of my life. Well, as a employee for the South Carolina Department of Health, some issues occurred and I have to become privy to. Working in regulations, when we get a regulation, we have to institute within the state, which can be sometimes challenging based upon culture. For example, the directive came down that burning rubber was no longer allowed. So working for a state agency, I'm glad I was not one of those officers who had to do this, but a lot of officers had to go up into the mountain areas of South Carolina to inform people who've lived there for generations that they were no longer allowed to burn rubber. This was not a happy situation. Many of our officers were met with rifles and threatened for trespassing because there was something missing in their communication with the people that lived in that area. We also had the issue with our home health nurses receiving quite a bit of complaints because they tended to call their patients by their first name, which is considered very disrespectful, especially in many African American communities. So there were a lot of complaints coming in because of our officers and our nurses doing their job, but again, not doing it in a way that could have been culturally competent taking in account the cultures that they were actually working with. So the directive next came down that each department had to be trained in cultural competence. So they asked for volunteers, and I volunteered and was trained to be a cultural competence trainer for my department. So that's how I initially got into cultural competence at the state agency level. As far as being involved in cultural competence as a chiropractor, no one ever mentioned that to me as I was a student, but it so happened that my love for research kind of pointed me in that direction. So in the next slide, I'll discuss how I actually started doing research on one topic and stumbled upon an article written by Dr. Claire Johnson and Dr. Bart Green entitled Diversity in the Chiropractic Profession Preparing for 2050. This article really piqued my curiosity as far as what they were saying that we as chiropractors need to do to be prepared for 2050. So this is where I read this article and it started to talk about cultural competence. Its conclusions, on the next slide, I talk about this article's conclusions. The conclusions were that the chiropractors were way behind gender and race diversity compared to other health practitioners. We were way behind in numbers, especially as our population was growing. There were not enough chiropractors in um, diverse numbers, is not enough female chiropractors when they compared us to the other health professionals. And their final conclusion was that the chiropractic profession urgently needs to develop and implement strategies to address issues of diversity and cultural competence in order to prepare for the inevitable changes by the year 2050. So again, these were things that piqued my attention because having been a cultural competence trainer, having been a woman of color and understanding the importance of diversity and the need for diversity, in my position, many times I'm the only woman or the only woman of color in many meetings. When I worked for the Department of Health, when I went to EPA meetings and things like that, I saw that quite a bit, as well as when I was at Sherman College and in my undergraduate education. So I understood the importance for diversity in the professional field. So in the next slide, I'm going to discuss just what happened next because my curiosity got piqued so much that I applied for a grant through the Office of Research and Scholastic Activity on campus. And I was given a research grant to research the whole idea of cultural competence. And that research was entitled Educating the 21st Century Doctor of Chiropractic, a 2-year study to research the design, pilot, and evaluate the feasibility of integrating cultural competence into the Doctor of Chiropractic curricula at Life University. And that was pretty interesting just to start doing that research. It's a 2-year process. I'm still writing information, learning more as I continue through the process. Though the grant has been finished, I'm still working on this project. So I've used that information to feed into the information I'll use to work with you guys as far as why cultural competence is going to be important as we move forward in the Doctor of Chiropractic profession. So in the next slide, I want to talk about the numbers. What do the statistics say about chiropractic? Where are we as a profession? How can we do better? And what areas do we need to do better in? So on to the next slide. When we look at our numbers are definitely increasing. Looking at the numbers from the Federal Chiropractic Licensing Board, who actually gets all the numbers from the state chiropractic licensing boards, we can see the number of chiropractors that are licensed in our country continues to increase. In 2000, we were at 80,000 doctors of chiropractic. In 2017, we were at 96,000 doctors of chiropractic. That's not a lot when you look at the scheme of our population, but we definitely see our numbers are going up. The 2019-2020 numbers, however, are still being tallied. So I don't have a final number on that, but at my last count, it was at 91,000 doctors of chiropractic. So with COVID, some things have a lot of the agencies haven't reported as well as they could have, or they have done in the past. So hopefully in the near future, we'll find out the final numbers for 2019-2020. I do want to make a comment that the Board of Chiropractic examiners in most states, if not every state, do not take into account the gender or the race of the chiropractor that's registered for a license there. So that's some data that actually is missing that we can actually use when looking at our numbers as doctors of chiropractic serving our country. In the next slide, I'll look at some data coming from the National Institute of Health, where they talk about how many people have actually seen chiropractors in the last 20 years, I would say, from 2002 up until 2017. According to their data, 8.4% of the United States adults, that's about 19.4 million, have used chiropractic or osteopathic manipulation between 2002 and 2012. In also 9.5 United States adults use yoga between 2002 to 2012. When we look at our chiropractic numbers in 2012, 9.1 US adults actually used a chiropractor, and in 2017 it was up to 10.3% of adults in the United States actually use chiropractic. One thing was documented in their research was that non-Hispanic white adults were more likely to use yoga, meditation, and chiropractors compared to Hispanic and non-Hispanic Black adults. So even the NIH is looking at how our numbers affect all communities in our country. On the next slide, I want to discuss where we are as far as our percentage by gender. And if we look at our percentage of chiropractors by gender, that number is definitely increasing. Now, this data came from the NBCE, the National Board of Chiropractic Examiners Practice Analysis of Chiropractic document that they just released for 2020. You can obtain this on their website, nbce.org. And they are looking at these numbers were just those from the doctors that participated in the surveys that they sent out in 2019. So it's not a large number of chiropractors. It's not the 92,000 chiropractors that have been surveyed to look at these numbers, but it's a smaller research set that shows that we still see increasing numbers of female chiropractors in reference to male chiropractors. In 1991, we had 86.7% male chiropractors, 13.3% female chiropractors. In 2019, we have 67% male chiropractors and 31% female chiropractors. So the numbers have definitely come closer together, with female chiropractics being about half the number of male chiropractors. We also see that with enrollment in chiropractic colleges. At Life University, our enrollment is about 51-49 male to female as far as enrollment of chiropractic students, male to female. So we do see that changing and having changed over the time. So let's move on to the next slide and talk about a percentage of chiropractors based upon race. These are separate data. One is from the study that I read in 2019 with Dr. Johnson and Dr. Green, and that shows that 85% of chiropractors were white compared to 0.8% at the time being Black or African American, 1% being Hispanic or Latino. 2.6% is being Asian, and 4% being 0.4% being African American. In 2019, again, this number comes from the NBCE research study, for chiropractic that they did for 2020, and they found that 90.8% of their respondents to their survey were white chiropractors, 1.6% were Black or African American, 3% were Hispanic or Latino, 2% were Asian or Pacific Islanders, 1% Native American, and 1.7% were other, compared to the 10.2% of other back in 2012. So the numbers are changing. For African American chiropractors, it seems to have doubled. But again, the sample size is not, again, that 96 or 92,000 chiropractors listed on the Federal Chiropractic Licensing Board site. So again, it's a smaller sample size, but again, we're seeing, again, the majority is still going to be the white chiropractor in the United States because of the numbers that are already there. On the next slide, it shows that the most common race, ethnicity, and gender combination for College of Chiropractic graduates in 2016 also showed that white males received 1,098 chiropractic degrees, white females 694 chiropractic degrees, and our Hispanic and Latino male received 89 degrees from the colleges of chiropractic. So again, this again matches pretty much our population, what the numbers look like. I always wondered what was the big deal between why we needed to have a change in the number of people that we see, because I think that's going to be important. Not a big deal, but it was always concerning to me how many people have actually seen a chiropractor. Because I knew when I was growing up, I never saw a chiropractor. I never even saw a chiropractic office. I didn't know what a chiropractor was till I was late in my 30s and already had a master's degree before I actually knew what a chiropractor was, and someone else had to introduce them to me. So when we talk about our numbers and who we see, I go back to a quote from BJ Palmer. And on the next slide, BJ Palmer talks about us seeing the world, regardless of who the person is or how they look. BJ said, "Give me a spine, not a color of the skin, but give me a spine, and I'll set the world on fire." That was an amazing comment from him. And I wanted to see, have we actually started to set the world on fire? We see 10% of the population. How much of that population have we seen in other who are in other communities, underrepresented communities in our country? So on the next slide, I go into talking about just that. From that previous research study with Dr. Johnson, Dr. Green, they actually looked at those numbers and they found that chiropractors in 2012 saw 12.5% of the white population as far as being part of that 10% back then. But we're seeing negative as far as other communities, especially minority communities, negative 11.7% Blacks and African Americans, negative 5.2 Hispanic, Asian negative 2.4, and Native American negative 0.5. So there is a definite disparity as far as us bringing chiropractic to the world, as far as the patients that we actually see and care for. So moving on to that, I said, well, they're talking about what's going to happen in 2050. So based upon the 2010 US Census, the numbers of our population are definitely shifting. So what we're looking for in 2050 is a decrease in the minority population. I'm sorry, in the majority population, and increase in the minority populations. So what we see here is estimated at 51% white Americans, 24% Hispanic or Latino Americans, 12% African American or Black Americans, 8% Asian Pacific Islanders, and 2% Native Americans. So we're seeing a shift in our population that there's estimating by 2050 that our minority populations are going to be called emerging majority populations because they're going to have larger increases in their growth. So looking at this information, I go into the next slide. It tells me that chiropractors, we need new skill sets. We need new things to help us reach the emerging majorities that are coming into the world, being born into the world, who have no idea what chiropractic is. Even with 96,000 chiropractors or 91,000 chiropractors, so few people actually know what chiropractic actually is. So this is going to be an important time for chiropractors to consider advanced training, whether cultural competence training, whether diversity training, even global marketing, in order to better reach the masses of people who need to know the advantages and the benefits that chiropractic can give them. So this is just the beginning of these episodes of teaching. So in the next episode, so on the next slide, I'm going to get more into exactly what cultural competence is not. And I do that because I found even in training, people have preconceived notions of cultural competence. So I like to go and explain exactly what it is not, and then we can get into actually what it is. I also want to talk about culture. I want to define culture and define what is culture. And let's talk about that and have that conversation. So that's all for today. So hopefully you'll join me for the next episode next month, where I'll talk more about chiropractic and what cultural competence actually is. So thank you for your time, and especially thank you to ChiroSecure for actually offering these opportunities. Next week, stay tuned for Dr. Ankur Prakash, who's going to speak to you about his experience in our chiropractic community. Thank you again and have a great day.